Raphael, Jekyll, Deep Finesse, Nerd Cube, Simon Bay.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble! Y'all ready for this?
Get ready for Terra Mystica's Tuesday League.
Welcome to the Terra Mystica Premier League. I'm Mr. Fickles, or as Istari's autocorrect calls me, Mr. Tickles. I have the honor of co-casting today with Terra Mystica's greatest professor, the champion of the international clash with Team Canada, he who hates giants more than biblical David. It's Zoras.
Hey, hello, Mr. Fickles. How are you?
I'm doing super well. Excited for this one.
Yeah, me too. All right.
We've got Jekyll on the bye week this week, and so we have a clash between Nerd Cube, Deep Finesse, Raphael Furiu, and Simone B.
Yeah, and I think that they are already in the faction selection now process, so I suppose we should jump right in. That's the first game of the Terra Mystica Tuesday League. Just let me a moment to set it up. Here we go. So this season 3, very excited about that. And what do you think about this track? Is there anything that strikes you at first?
Yeah, well, so NG's Giants Mermaids are in already. So I think the thing that pops immediately, right, is the double stacked air and earth cult, which is pretty interesting. And round one temple event makes, a 2 temple opening kind of interesting.
And we all know who like that, right?
Yeah, that's a self-professed specialty of Nerd Cube for sure. Let's see. So we're missing the 6 coin scroll. Also missing TP scoring, which isn't super consequential. Although NGs do like the TP scroll a bit more than other factions, I would say, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, what's popping for you here?
I think that the other thing to mention is the digging event, right? In round 4, always a very, very defining event, both because of the points you can get from the spades and also the coins that you can get as the cult reward. NG and Darklings, if we look at the factions that are in already, are known to be a faction that can exploit that very well. Some games, Mermaids and Giants can, but it's not as obvious. So NG more for the cult reward and Darklings for both, really. So we'll have to look for this. I often like to look at the last events. So we have a dwelling event in the last round. I find that's usually good for Darklings. I think that they are a faction that can pile up trees very well and kind of build taller. They have a lot of reasons to build taller. So that could be an interesting strategy here for Darklings to kind of try to capitalize on this. That's, I think, why we see already such a heavy betting on Darklings. And if you take a faction like Mermaid, I think they don't like it so much. Engineers, they can do well with it, but with Giants in the game, I mean, it's hard to know in advance whether the shipping route for NG will be open. So I think that NG is with Giants is probably the hardest faction to assess here.
Yeah.
Do you have? Oh yeah, go ahead.
I would say, I sometimes think that red and gray can coexist reasonably well on this map, in the sense that I tend to see red just takes the north and gray takes the south. Um, so they might stay out of each other's way reasonably well here. I don't see this as this is not a situation where you can do something crazy like double center for Giants. So I think this will be Giants playing north, NG's playing south. And I mean, one thing that's kind of interesting to me is, right, like a priest round 1 to air is incredibly valuable here. Interestingly, only, Darklings will have a priest in hand to start, and there's no priest scroll. And yeah, that'll be something sort of to monitor, because I think if a given player can sort of dominate air cult in the first couple rounds, and then or the same or a different player would dominate earth cult, there's just going to be such an income advantage coming from that. And I'll be curious to see if anyone does even like a first move priest, or if we might see an air 2 or something like that to try to leverage that. I think would be interesting, because Giants are the only faction that start with a step on air.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's I'm looking forward for Air 2 here. I think that it could be an interesting plan with almost any faction except Giants, I guess. But yeah, for NG that could be like I had been experimenting with NG Air 2, and I think it's maybe undervalued strategy. So I will be looking forward to see if some of these players tried that. Darklings Air 2 is also like considered their weakest economic faction, but with this track it could work. So yeah, I wonder about that one.
Yeah, I think the key for going air 2 NGs is that you can't do something like a first move double dig, because you need to keep a lot of kernels in your supply, because you're going to get, once you get the second temple out, you already have natural, like, so much power income. So it's important to keep, because it's such a waste when you can't take all the power that's incoming.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And one thing that maybe go in this favor is that mermaids are in the game. So if NG don't get a power bonus, they could not double dig their first move anyway. So if mermaids go for a double spade, then maybe you go for the air 2. The air 2 plan. So maybe you can adapt a kind of flexible strategy here. If you can get double spade, you just burn for it. But if it's not there because mermaid beat you to it, then maybe you can pivot toward air 2 strategy. So that will be interesting.
So, question for you: Is this a mermaids d5 h4 game? So, meaning Jekyll and I call this vertical mermaids. So, like, is this a vertical mermaids game where they play on that kind of north-south in the middle and try to sort of threaten connection for factions, or just kind of try to be in the middle of the action? Or do you still play west as mermaids, assuming Giants will get there soon enough to make that worth it?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, actually, because if mermaids start at h4, engineers game is going to be harder for sure. One thing I usually don't like not starting e4 with mermaids is when there's danger that darklings start e5. Here, though, since mermaids will their second dwellings after darklings, you can wait, make sure that darklings doesn't start e5, and then you can start h4. So yeah, I think that's a possibility. Yeah, I think
my only concern, if it was brown in instead of black, then I like it better, because there's a better chance that e4 blue on the isthmus will still be available. Sorry, my family members are turning on and off lots of lights in my house, so sorry about that. if it's brown instead of black, there's a better chance that isthmus blue is available later for like a kind of mid game dwelling spree where you still get to a lot of these on 3 ship. Whereas if darklings are on e5 on the isthmus, that blue might disappear, which curbs seriously expansion possibility. So I think I still start e4 d5 as mermaids, which are the traditional starting placements. Here, I thought I'd think about the idea because sometimes the beauty of vertical mermaids is it can put other players in a very challenging position
Yeah,
early.
yeah, and
So it's kind of a curveball.
what you can do though is that you start d5 and you wait if dark and to see where darklings put their 2 dwellings, because that's the beauty. You have like the last call. So if he doesn't start c1 e5, then maybe h4 has more value. So
Yeah, no, that'll be interesting. Um, so uh, so giants are the 30. I don't think we're surprised about that. This is a no landscapes game, by the way. And which matters a lot for giants. But and then we've seen mermaids almost as low as NGs here. I think is interesting.
yeah, I find that mermaids cohabit well with giants, much better than Angie. Do they worth as much? That's hard to assess. Um, to me, Angie will be like a high risk, high reward faction here. Mermaids, I kind of have a better idea of how they will develop. Angie, it can go very well, it can go very bad. So I think that depending on how aggressive you want to be in the beginning of the tournament, mermaids look like a safer pick for me, but I don't know. And the other thing maybe to factor in, because that can affect a lot of these two factions too, is what kind of strategy giants will try here. You have like temple and stronghold, so do you go for temple giants? Is that even a possibility? Will you go for temple giants here?
We've got Nerd Cube on giants now, so I think the probability of
Oh,
temple giants just went up.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
And you might need to tweak your overlay to
yeah, thank you.
get some. Yep, no worries. So I was thinking the same thing about temple giants. Now it will be. I'm guessing we're gonna see giants on. I was assuming, we'll see giants on either big building scroll or worker power. I'm assuming because they really need. Well, we'll see now. I've been joking that there should be a bit of a bucket list for each player to see if they can, like almost a bingo card, and you have to check it off during your career. And one of the things I was thinking about is like, have you won with 2 temple opening for every faction? And I think giants, this is it. This is the chance to go. Oh, I guess the big building scroll got snapped up, so we're not going to see a 2 temple giants opening now, unless he takes. But I'm joking about that, of course. But yeah, I'll be very curious to see if he opens building anyway, or if he actually goes temple here.
Yeah, that's to me the biggest question of this opening round. We see also that so we had our answer. Darklings decided to go e5, so I think that mermaids had to answer to that by going e4 as they did. Which probably NG is happy about, right? That means that he has a little more maneuvering space on the south, and as you said,
Yeah.
probably he wants to take the south. Um,
I think
and
this makes
yeah, go ahead.
sense.
Yeah,
I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it'll be. I mean, one hex I'm keeping my eye on now is G6, the East Blue. I'm assuming Darklings will get around there, but it's not impossible that NGs double dig it before Darklings can get through. And if they do, then Giants can cut off Darklings North pretty easily. And life just gets much harder for Darklings to connect. But we'll see if Darklings beat them to that hex anyway.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering if Darklings will not do a double East in this circumstance. I mean,
Oh
I'm
wow.
that could have because of Giants and G are kind of less threatening, so giving them a lot of power is not that bad. Uh, because as for the reason you say, like connecting the two black is much harder in the setup than it usually is. So there's a little less value to have only one dwelling on the east. So I think that could have been an interesting idea.
Yeah, that is really interesting. I think the problem with that is that probably then you do see vertical mermaids, and so Darklings don't have a good third town spot after doing the two east towns.
Yeah, that's possible. That's
Um,
a good point.
and so it probably the placement order probably matters disproportionately there.
Yeah,
Um, so we see and the so NGs end up on 4 coins and a cult step, which is interesting. I suppose there was a bit of slim pickings for NGs there. I think they'd have been happier with either of the other three that went before them. Darklings are getting a bit leech starved at the moment.
yeah,
Um, that will change soon because NGs will be upgrading to a temple on F6 in a bit. In fact, they might TP now in the east. We'll see, just to get the leech from Darklings. It looks like Darklings. Do you think they're gonna try for Sanctuary round one, despite round two being the big building round? They're on this. They're on the big building scroll, so I'm
yeah.
assuming Darklings are eyeing that.
On this scroll, yeah, you go you if it's there for you, because right now, as you said, they are leech starved. If it's there for you, you go for the sanctuary for sure. There's just too much value in it, and that will be interesting too. If Darklings go for the sanctuary, does he go double econ, for example, like air two?
Yeah.
Earth 2 could be very fun here, but then all of a sudden giants maybe are better than they were looking at because they might be able to get the Earth 1. So that's all kind of these factors that come into play. And we see here that NGD elected to not go, or probably not go
Hmm.
double temple. They prefer to jump on the double spade. I think I like this decision.
Yeah. I think I do too. It's perhaps a little too risky that Giants. I mean, the dream scenario now is that NG somehow get the worker power action also. The table just cannot allow that to happen. Um,
Yeah,
so
who
that would
wants to
be,
do worker, right? It will be the Darklings, so I
but
suppose.
and yeah, yeah, Darklings. But yeah, it's Darklings for sure. And in fact, I think they'll do it. I think they'll do it next move. I could be wrong about that. Um, but yeah, there's no way NGs get that because that's the opening for NGs. That's just unbelievable. If
Yeah,
if they can get double dig and then two new fresh workers. Now they're opening with two temples and two dwellings. It's just it breaks the game almost. So that won't be happening though because I'm assuming Darklings really want the worker power action here. Um, is there any chance? So I'm kind of curious. I'll be keeping my eye on what mermaids are looking at. So I mean, they of course they can just go temple and two dwellings with because they have the dig scroll, so they could dig F2 and still get two dwellings down if they wanted to go that route. Would you save your power as mermaids, or what would you be thinking about?
uh, so yeah, what they want to do with that power? I think that if you can get two dwelling down in round one, and then you can get the double speed in round two, obviously that can be bad, right? So I think that's what I would think right now. There is no like much of cult play that mermaids can do. The priest action is already gone. Nerdcube took
Yeah.
that as giants.
Let me
So
counter argue with myself then, because
okay, go ahead.
here's one challenge of mermaids and giants is that C3, the northern green hex, can be and very well may be the first giant stomp this game. By that I mean the stronghold action. We'll see if he actually goes stronghold. We still don't have our answer to that. So mermaids are going to risk it, right? So they use their dig scroll on the F2, the southwest green, so that they can open Temple 2 dwellings. We'll see if Giants go stronghold here and then stomp on C3 with their stronghold action. It's would you stomp that one? I think I would as Giants.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean, depending, I if the dream for Giants, I think, is to connect D4 and G2. If they somehow can beat Engineers to G2, that will be awesome. But I don't think it's likely to happen. The thing is, that's one thing also about this situation. NG is kind of pressure everywhere, right? They want to beat, they need a lot of speed. They want to beat Darklings to G6. They want to beat Giants to G2. So taking E6 will put a little more pressure on them, but I think that overall, especially like with the double spade that NG got in round one, and they were able to take F4 and E9, which were like the two hex, very important. E9 because it was on immediate fire, and F4 because it's the key to G2. I think that once that's accomplished, I agree with you. You take G3, you get one ship access to A6, you have one ship access to B4. So probably that's what will happen. Yeah.
I mean, and clearly Simone B says so. My minor issue with that is connection gets much harder for mermaids if Darklings beat them to the south. If they lose that hex, it's just it's a longer way. They can definitely do it. It makes me, I'll be very curious to see if that happens. I'm also just still super curious to see if, so we do see Darklings take the worker power action, by the way, which had been brewing. And we should comment on that very, very consequential priest round one. It's interesting that Rafa still has not put his priest to air. So he let Giants get their priest to air, which is incredibly valuable. So like I really like this from NerdCube. Again, we kind of noticed that they're the only ones with an air step. So already, and now he can flirt actually with getting 2 digs from air by round 3 possibly. Which is part of the problem with cult rewards from dig cult rewards for Giants is like, it's really hard to get to the 8th step for them. But I think they could actually make it potentially.
It will be interesting to see how he follow up with that. Darklings, I think the way think when they needed to do a trading post in order to get the power for the 2 worker action, and then they needed to get the 2 worker action to secure it. So I suppose that they didn't really have the time to send the priest to air. Maybe they could have let the worker hang there. Maybe like NG was not an immediate threat. Probably Giants don't take it, but I suppose he wanted to play safe. Probably that means that we're not seeing air to Darklings, right? At this point. I think that now there's a lot more value in Earth 2. Interesting too is that NG followed up with a trading post in F6, so now it will seem that if Darklings want to do a sanctuary, she'll be able to after getting the Earth favor. So it's just enough to burn the power and get the sanctuary. I wonder if NG could have delayed that somehow, maybe to make it more.
Yeah, they do have a cult step.
Yeah, and they have an F4 dwelling that they want to build, but that's just making the board a lot clearer now.
So NG's just used that step on Earth. Darklings, it's interesting because I don't think Air 2 Darklings would have been completely out of the question. In the sense that, they could still get a worker next round and they could still hit the air dig the following round. But I think there's something nice also about getting the priest to Earth taking Earth 2 and really making a statement to the table like, hey, I'm just going to claim Earth Cult this game and you guys can fight over the rest. We'll see if NGs let that happen. NGs have taken Earth 2, Mermaids have taken Fire 1. So this is a pretty, and I like this. I think there's enough scoring in this game, I think, that you really do not need to rush Earth 1. So I'm a fan of these openings. I think it's an interesting mishmash from NGs, right? To it's nice that they can leave that gray vacant so that they were able to do one temple round 1, take Earth 2 with it, and then they can build on that F4, the hanging gray, because giants don't threaten it, in the same way that E9 was threatened. So they're kind of finishing with an interesting, I suppose it's not that unusual, but kind of an interesting 1 dwelling, 1 TP, 1 temple in round 1.
Yeah, and it's not over. I think that if Darklings follow on with the Sanctuary, they might have the power for more.
Oh wow!
And even with this, I mean, they probably will build one more dwelling and one more temple.
Yeah. Oh my God, this is okay. So he can definitely do another temple here.
Yeah. And I think
wow, this is a really strong opening from NGs.
Yeah.
Okay. And Giants kind of got the dream round 1 as far as I think about playing Giants, which is you want at least you need 1 worker on the power scroll, and you then are hoping to get enough leech to take priest and coins round 1, and Nerdcube does in fact get that. I kind of think I agree with the Giants stronghold round 1 here. Do you? I think I also would have done what Nerdcube did.
Yeah, I think I I agree, because I think I can play Temple Giants in any circumstances. I may still not. I still haven't recovered from the fact that it's actually working sometimes. But yeah, I think. As you said, it's a high-scoring game. Earth 1 is not that valuable, and you might still have Earth 1. It's not everyone is going for economic favor, so there was less reason for Giants to rush Earth 1. So yeah, I totally agree with you on that one. I think that not much reason in this setup to go for the tempo in the end. One interesting thing, I wanted to come back on this amazing first round for NG. Uh, you know, uh, the cult step is what gave them like this little power that they needed, and also the tempo that they needed to leech some more. So
wow.
I find that kind of interesting, because we both thought at the beginning, well, the cult step scroll, it's not the best for them, but it turned out to be amazing here.
Yeah, I have come to feel that pass scroll, the cult step pass scroll, might be the most underrated round 1 pass scroll for this reason, which is you can manipulate power income a bit. Sometimes it can actually like let you take 1 move where you gain a little bit of power and you don't feed anyone else power. And so when they take their next move, you're getting power income, and sometimes that can be the difference to get you double dig, for example. I think I do think that's really interesting, and
Yeah.
I'm not looking closely enough here to see if he'll get this last dwelling down or not.
Yeah, I'd be surprised. I think he's gonna be interesting. I mean, one maybe could have get the last dwelling out if Darklings went for the Sanctuary, but Darklings is doing something funky.
Yeah, two temple Darklings here. It's gonna be so. First of all, we're gonna have a priest income bonanza from Darklings, because they will go Sanctuary next round if they can.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
We'll see how the numbers stack up, because they'll need 2 fresh workers. Yeah, they'll need 2 workers and then a couple extra coins from what they're looking at right now, or maybe the coins they can make it, depending on how far they burn down. So we'll see how that ends up playing out for them. We do see Giants making a play for the north-south center town. That's really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So much is going on
Wow.
in this round one.
Oh my
So
God. Aren't
that's
NGs passing on to the dig? There's no way they get it. Okay, yeah. I thought NGs are passing on to the dig. Um,
yeah.
so now
So
if mermaids, so let's see. Mermaids will double dig this round two because they passed on to the dwelling scroll. So they're gonna beat giants to C3. I think since NGs move before giants, they can build F4 and then dig G2 before giants can get there. So
yeah,
we'll see
it's
how bad that ends up breaking for giants, but or not. Probably shouldn't second guess Cube's decision there. I'm sure he's thinking about these things, and he's a better player than I am. So
yeah, it's an interesting decision. So there's like a lot go, as I said, so much went on in this round. So the double temple probably eyeing the sanctuary in round two for Darklings. It's because of the spade event in round four, right? He's trying to produce so much priest because he's trying to set up for this for a big round four. So that's going to be very interesting to follow up. Then there's this dig on e6, and Nurki went really careful. I think he didn't want to give Angie power before he passed or something because he dig and he build after, even if he was losing a power from Darkling's Templing. So
yeah,
that's an interesting finesse. I'm not sure I'm getting it all, but then there is like this whole dynamic of the dig in e6 and what's Nurki's plan. And we see that in the end, Siman is not going for double dig. He
no,
went
he's not, or
for the
not
worker.
yet. So I think it was not. Yeah, it wasn't threatened yet because Deep Finesse has to rush G2, I think, right? So he
Yeah,
increased ship and
yeah,
then risking Nerd Cube stomping C3. Ow. So Nerd Cube's taking a moment to think here, and he's got to be thinking about F3 versus C3, right? I mean, I could be completely wrong about that. Maybe he's thinking about taking the coins. But that's
or
such an interesting decision because NGs will beat him to G2, right? I'm assuming if he stomps F3, NGs just take G2.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think
I think
F3 is quite safe regardless. So if he wants to do a sanctuary town, so he does take the coins. I think that's interesting. I think that's interesting. I mean the coins are so good, and to get it round one and round two is pretty wild. Wow, Simone B doesn't even care about C3. Okay, now I'm really curious to see how this goes for mermaids. I
yeah,
mean, I'm curious because it will be very interesting to see whether darklings and mermaids end up fighting over some of these black hexes that are in the north and south or not, right? Because if darklings get up there, all of a sudden in giants take C3, all of a sudden life gets much harder for mermaids. It could beat darklings to the south. I think this is super interesting. I mean, we should also note that on the isthmus E5, darklings cannot sanctuary town there very easily, which is always a little bit of a bummer. They're always hoping to get an easy sanctuary town on
yeah.
like E5.
I the way I see it, I think that mermaids is thinking they took fire one. They are going for a high shipping strategy. I think that's the only explanation for the ways is playing. I like the advanced shipping before digging. I think that getting C1 is absolutely awesome for them. It opens two other
Yeah.
hexes with and they are on the dwelling scroll, so that has a lot of value. And by not taking C3, I mean NerdQ must be happy about that for sure. I believe, but
Yeah.
by not taking C3 also. It means that he's gonna advance shipping fast and take I think go to 3 ships at some point, take I4 and H4 before Darklings can make a move there.
Yeah,
And
I like it. I agree. I think it's a bet that he gets to H4 before Darklings. And looking at the board right now, I think it's a smart bet.
yeah, exactly. It's a
C4
good
also
play.
opens A11, right? The northeast blue for mermaids, and so as a dig, yeah, definitely helps giants though. But I think I like it. I think I like it because it also there's some threat to like C4 B5 10 for mermaids from giants in the relatively near future, and so Simone B is also getting a jump on that, which I think is smart.
Yeah. So it seems that Darklings barely have enough for their sanctuary. Is that what they are going for now? Is it
Yeah.
going? Is there any chance that Darkling is thinking about triple econ here? Is there any chance because he
Oh
needs
my
worker?
god.
If he wants to go for the sanctuary here, I think he needs to go triple econ. That would be
Wow.
something, right?
I never thought I'd hear the words that someone needs to go triple econ, but let's wish it into existence. That's that's super interesting. He does have a priest to burn. We'll see if he feeds it to a cult for a little power or what he has in mind with that. Oh wow. What a cool I did a kind of a weird alchemist game a bit like this in my Premier League game where I opened 2 temple alchemists and then did stronghold round 2. And it
Yeah, I remember that
it's
one.
interesting. It's just giving me a little bit of flashback to that because it can work great, but you're monitoring your worker income so closely then because you're right at the cusp of a breaking point where if you don't get your worker income to a like necessary threshold, I think the whole game completely collapses on you.
Yeah, I would love to do it. It's probably saying that he needs to go triple econ is an overstatement, but I mean the worker he will get this way will have a lot of value. So it's a possibility. I would
It's
love to
true.
see it.
That would be super interesting. I mean, yeah, it's really it feels like Earth One. I think the reason you said he has to is that it feels like Earth One will be too crippling. Well, here's our moment of truth. Like out he goes Earth One. Okay, so
It goes there
we'll
from.
just have to keep an eye on what his worker income looks like because he can land on if he can land on even one worker, the worker power pass scroll.
Yeah,
So and he can put his priest to air here if he wants to, for example. So, he can have 4 worker income potentially just from that. And so I think that's above the necessary threshold.
yeah, probably it will be all right. There was, I think, a possibility also to do something crazy like sending the priest to water. Zitkab was suggesting that on the chat. Send the priest to water and go water too, because the cult are wide open. Mermaids is going like for shipping strategy. Darklings, I mean, NG are not usually a very cult heavy faction, and they don't look like they have a heavy cult strategy. And giants are not a cult faction, so that could have been interesting too. With like the 2 cult bomb that you use on air to get the worker,
Mhm.
I that might have been possible too. But yeah, he went for Art One, and that's probably the wisest of all these options, as long as he
Yeah.
can produce some some workers. And I mean, it's still a pretty cool game, right? You still
Yeah.
went double econ with 2 temples and sanctuary around you. So I'm really curious to see how it's going to go.
Yeah. So this is an amazing, I mean, what an interesting game already. Um, there's so much stuff to monitor. So like Rafa's game's super interesting. Going tall. Giants kind of decided to diss the track and did big building in the temple round and temple in the big building round, but Nerdcube does end up with Earth One here, right? So
Yeah,
I think
it's
he's in an interesting position. He doesn't have a points lead that you might want to have from being the kind of the 30-point faction, but it's a little bit moot. He makes an interesting decision here to dig F3.
Yeah, I was about
I
to
think
ask you about that one.
it's cool. I think what has happened is now mermaids don't actually care that much about C3 because of the route they've chosen to take. So it's possible that he can even get a 4-hex town there. It also gets him to some reds, right? Now he has nice 2-ship access to the west and south. But I actually think this means, I think Simone B is really, really eager to have Nerdcube's Giants in the West ASAP, because he needs neighbors for temples for TPs. And I think, we're entering a TP round. We'll see how many Simone B chooses to build, but mermaids can get buried in setups like this sometimes if they don't get the west neighbor until like round 5 or 6. Sometimes they can that delay actually can a little bit kill them.
Yeah, yeah, it's gonna be interesting. We'll have to expect one trading post this round, so that's gonna help a little for Mermaid. They're gonna have to sit a little probably on their on what they've built, and yeah, I will not be surprised to see Giants advance shipping and take G1, for example, or uh, so NG decided not to go for the shipping bonus, so that's might be a possibility for them to try to go G1 in E3. Mermaids will be super happy with that. So we'll have to keep an eye on this one. The other
Yeah.
thing I'm realizing here is that Darklings will build a dwelling here. It will be, I mean, that's probably very tempting for them. So with a 3 power to worker conversion and 1 power to 1 coin, this is that does that worth it? And prefers to convert the power to coins, so that's probably a good idea too.
One problem with not to focus on Darklings too much, but of course, one problem with going tall is that you're not claiming territory. And I'm just wondering what this is. Is he gonna? He went on to temp ship. Does he have a plan to go to 2-ship this round? Is he, do NGs threaten G6 right now, and force Darklings north? Like that G6 hex was the one I kind of called out at the beginning of the game as, Darklings can. I you know I think I'm a bit concerned if they're getting beat to H4 in the south by mermaids as we think, and that if NGs choose to take G6 from them, that they'll be in potential trouble. Which maybe to Zitkop's point, maybe maybe the play here was a water 2 and just say, and actually put your sanctuary on E10, race to the 2-key town or something like that, even before the town round. Maybe something like that would have been another option. We'll see if NGs take G6 or not. They may not be interested in it. And indeed, they take coins. Nerdcube does indeed get his 4-hex set up for red in the middle, which I think, given how mermaids went, did look likely. So I think Nerdcube's game's super interesting. Anytime Giants get north-south through the middle like that, they're quite happy, right?
Yeah, that's definitely an achievement for them when they succeed to do that. It makes like it gives them access to a lot of hacks, and there will be interesting as we've said. So we see Darklings advancing their shipping. So I think that you're right about that. They are quite behind in terms of claiming territory, and we see that Raphael is trying to go for B3A8. I think as soon as he can, and he's gonna try to settle on this before mermaids start taking hexes from him. I don't think he's ever getting b5. If needs be, Mermaid is going to hard dig that one. And yeah, connection seems super hard for Darklings. It doesn't look that good for them.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, obviously, I think we can always cheer for interesting play, right? Like that's another. In fact, I think Tuesday League should institute like most stylish win of the season or something like that to encourage people to do cool stuff. And like kudos to Rafa for doing something cool here. Very, very curious. I mean, all around this game's very, very interesting. And so we do see Nerdcube Town early. It's a TP round, so it's he only has TP locations that force him to town. He takes Ship Town, which is that, I mean, maybe the most common early town from Giants.
Yeah, I think it makes perfect sense here. I will not be surprised. So he still has a priest. I will not be surprised if he decides to advance shipping once more, go e3, i5, d6. I mean, a6. He has like an interesting expansion. Of course, not all in this round. Maybe we'll decide to send the priest somewhere else. He could just take d6, a6 this round, say, and wait a little for e3, i5, so it doesn't need to advance shipping. But he's gonna have like after round 3 to have all that on board for Giants. That's good. I mean, that's definitely good.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's really nice, and to have Earth 1 in pocket, so he's going to, even though he's expanding in a non-dwelling round here, he'll still be scoring for this, and he's on the ship point scroll, so going to 2 ships, super valuable in that sense. Just flipping to NGs for a second. Deep Finesse, who I think is a pretty good player. I'm not sure about that. He, decided to not do the right. So he, a very sweet round, of course, is always if you can take coins and priest power actions, and so he managed to swing that. So his round has been coins, priest power action, increase ship. So we also see, he's now kind of locking in on some expansion to grays sooner rather than later.
Yeah,
He'll probably do some mix of building dwellings and TPs this round, though, wouldn't you think?
yeah. TPs are so valuable for NG. So yeah, I definitely should build some. I think that keeping 2 dwellings on the board and upgrading the rest TP will be perfect for him. So he has 5 workers and 3 dwellings. So probably if he can do like build 2 dwellings, maybe G1, C5, and then go for. Sorry, the cat is really annoyed right now. Yeah, so in upgrade like F4, G2, E9 to TP. It could be really good. That's also interesting for Nerdcube strategy, right? We didn't emphasize that, but Nerdcube picked C3 over C5, and now he might lose C5. All right, and I'm gonna let you drive on this one a little bit. I'm gonna just take care a little bit of the cat when I come back.
Worries. I've got kids banging on the glass door next to me. Hopefully the microphone's not picking that up. So, all right. Yeah, so Zoras was commenting on the gray at C5. So we see an NG's hard dig. Oh yeah. We see an NG's hard dig on D6.
I leave for 2 minutes and that's what happened?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So,
I didn't see that one coming. I really didn't see that one coming.
So that's interesting because it puts Giants in a potentially very challenging position.
It's really tough on Giants, but man, I mean, NG had like so much going on for them before that. with like all the trading posts they could build, they had like a very very interesting economy going on. Uh, I I mean that's deep finesse, right? It's a player who's really really aware of what's going on for others. I mean,
Mm,
um, to me, what that says is that deep finesse was very concerned about Giants game.
yeah. I
Um,
think fairly so. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
Giants, yeah. I think the fact that Giants even have a little bit of a leg up on a cult, um, they that's really interesting. I mean, I'll be curious to see how Giants recover from this because, might they put mermaids in a difficult position in the north in terms of threatening their kind of north town. Um, I'll be really curious to see how NerdCube responds to this.
Yeah, like you mean jumping on B5, for example?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Because
Yeah,
if he can get B5, his connection's quite safe, right? Because no one's really going to take B4. Also, so maybe D Finesse is thinking 3 moves ahead as he is wont to do. And thinking if I take D6, Giants take B5, which hurts mermaids and darklings. Um, oh my god. Yeah. So I don't know if Giants can beat mermaids to B5. Oh my
well,
god, that move a little bit exploded my brain.
I mean, if I suppose that oh yeah, it's so you're saying that if Giants will pass now, you think that um, mermaids will go for the spade action?
I am not making any claims other than I've got to think that mermaids are looking really carefully at B5 now, trying to count actions and estimate priorities.
Yeah,
Um,
I
this is
mean
a no
that's
landscape game, so they can't do some sort of weird sanctuary town with fire 2 on their D5 C4 hexes.
yeah.
Um,
That's such a good point, and I wonder like if that was part of the D6 hard dig.
I
If
think
it wasn't,
so. I think so.
if he saw, if Deepness not only saw like, oh, this is bad for giants, but it's also the dominoes of how it will affect mermaids and B5, and if that's just very very impressive.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I'd like to claim that I saw all of it in advance and I just wasn't saying it out loud, but that might be a stretch. Um, my goodness. So, and Darklings got only 2 dwellings down. They saved 2 priests for the digging round, so they're gonna really try to leverage that. So they're gonna dig at least 5 times probably in the dig round. Which is a lot of points.
Yeah,
Saying
and there will be like the question of where goes these digs. I mean,
it.
they were on temp ship with 2 ships, so now they're out only one. Is there any way, like, I, yeah, because the second town, I suppose it might take C2, something like that. Maybe that's what he's thinking.
I suspect, yeah, I suspect it's a kind of like, yeah, I don't know. I still kind of like the idea of Darklings gunning for 2 towns, 2 key, maybe. Like, I'm not sure what the route is to a competitive Darklings game here now. And there's a dig on G5, excuse me, on G6 that we've been wondering about. Um, so Darklings aren't getting south.
Yeah, connection is pretty much that, I think, for darkness. I mean, there's always like some funky play, but not here. I mean, not here. I think
Yeah,
B5 is just too much under pressure, and there's no way that darkness is going to here. Um,
yeah. So he'll grind his way to some points. I mean, he's gonna have a high scoring round 4, but Yeah, and you know, if he can win 2 cults, it's not nothing. It's yeah, it'll be interesting. You know, Darklings can definitely grind out some points here. So we see the snap coin action from Darklings, which makes sense. We see Nerdcube thinking really hard now about this action. This is where we do.
Yeah.
Oh, he took double dig. So he does take the B5 hex, but he does it with a double dig because it's a dig round. This is kind of like one of the few situations where I really like double dig for giants, which is in a dig round where you score with it. There, you know, and like, you know, sometimes there are other factions that are quite keen on lining that up and sort of counting on giants not taking it.
Hmm. Yeah.
So here we see that the dominoes are falling, Zoras.
Yeah, it's very interesting. There's like the way I play engineer. It, my understanding of engineers is shaken. Because because to me, like, they had like such a nice round. I would have like not cared. I would have just played my game, you know.
Yeah.
But I must say there's reason for it here. It's makes it a very interesting game.
I mean, it's funny because it seems very hostile to giants, and yet it actually strikes me as the person getting screwed by this the most is mermaids.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong about that, but you know, I think giants are going to be okay, right? Like they're going to town up there probably. Um, we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong about how mad Nerdcube is about that, but I think he's landing on his feet. I don't. It doesn't feel like it's hurting giants in a particularly dramatic way. But maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, well, I mean, it seems that D7 was not going to be part of a town either way, because one way or the other, NG was building C5. So the D6 hex, it was connection for Giants, he's connection, but now it seems that he's going to connect north anyway. And so it probably doesn't affect him that much in the end. I think I kind of agree with you.
There's another like small thing that I really like about NG's taking D6, which is that now NG's will presumably be taking G3 in the next couple rounds, and now they have connection on 2-ship instead of needing 3 shipping. And on 2-ship they can get a lot of grays. And I mean, NG's are you know, one thing that we haven't mentioned yet is round 6 dwellings can be very high scoring if your hexes are still sitting around,
Yeah.
which is a big if for in some games. But here, it looks like a lot of grays might be sitting around um, in round 6 for NGs. Now we do have a 31-point gap between Giants and NGs right now, so like, you know, that's nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, definitely. And there's not like the excuse of Giants not having Earth 1 in this one. They have Earth 1. So they have a good way to score. They are leading a cult. I mean, Giants game is good. It's and everyone else, it seems, is kind of struggling a little bit. So I think, as you said, it's interesting. It seems that in the end, the hard dig ended up hurting mermaids more, and it seems that we already knew that darklings had were looking a little rough. So it seems that it's between NG and Giants now, I think, in this game.
Yeah, that's my instinct too, but you know, my instinct is hit or miss. we surely we will be adding to the list of casters who've been completely wrong, including probably ourselves on past casts. Well, not probably, definitely, at least for me. But just like again, I think I love seeing right new and interesting play. Just keeping an eye on Darklings in the East, kind of curious
Yeah,
if there's anything surprising happening in the East that hasn't happened yet. But I was just gonna say, like, I 100% also would have gone for TP's last round. You know, like TPs are so good. Maybe they could have even flirted with. Wasn't watching coins too closely, but maybe they could have flirted with even a third temple to snag water
Water
one
one. Yeah.
and do a dwelling and two TPs or something like that. I think that would have made a lot of sense. And in fact, I think we saw in the Mind Sports Olympiad final, George Shortwell, shout out to George, did a really I think a very smart NG's game where he actually doesn't take Earth one round one, expands pretty quickly, then takes Water one before taking Earth one, so that he can pound some TPs down kind of round three, and then is able to grab Earth one after that, or expand again later in a dwelling round or something like that. It's just like you know doubling down on your scoring from TPs often just is like so good for NGs that I would have even expected something even more like that, even if they're not, even if it's not only a TP dwelling, but to see this hard dig from NGs is really, I think, pretty remarkable. Okay, so the G6 hex, interestingly, you're right, Deep Finesse is a little bit forced to take a single dig action. Maybe he wanted to, maybe he doesn't mind that, but I was just keeping my eye on that G6 hex because Darklings took a step towards it. Even though they only had one priest left, they could have maybe hit it once and turned it blue or something.
Yeah.
But Deep Finesse puts that to rest.
Yeah, the way it happened also, it was kind of ominous because there was like NG had the spade scroll and they used the spade on G3, and the minute he did that, Darkling built on F7. So I think that maybe he was trying to give him at least a little scare. It worked. Deep Finesse answered by
Yeah.
taking the single spade.
I mean, there are worse things than taking a single dig action to get two hexes.
Yeah.
That's not the end of the world. And to be honest, NGs actually don't need any more digs, unless you disagree with me on that. I don't see any more digs that they actually need or want. So
it's a
maybe it
digging
doesn't
round
really.
too. So yeah.
Might have just been Deep Finesse taunting.
Yeah, the only thing is, maybe I didn't watch Power closely enough. Maybe it didn't have Power at the time. I suppose it didn't. As like, why taking the scroll spade before the action spade, but maybe it didn't have the power for it. That would make sense too.
We
We
see
see.
Darklings pass first again. And we just witnessed a hard dig west from Mermaids with no build. Which I'm
And we
curious if he's playing for a particular scroll that he wants to hop onto, or if he just wants to pass last with the ship scroll so that he can have a quick round 5 and pass back on to ship scroll. Curious what he has in mind.
That's what I would think. I mean, there's giants who won the scroll, so there's probably denying factor too. He's trying to outweigh him. We see Darklings passing back on the on the temporary shipping. That surprises me. I thought that we were done with Darklings doing any shipping. I'm not sure like where he's going with that one. I suppose because I would have, yeah, maybe it's for the 7 coins action, I guess. It's for having the power for the 7 coin action, but then why not the worker power?
Yeah, that is. I'm having trouble being a mind reader here. So there was a coin on it. So 3 power and a coin versus.
There's a coin on
Yeah.
the worker power too. Maybe he's not going for the 4 coins. Maybe he's going for the bridge because it's a town going in a town ring. But that
he
doesn't
must
really
be
change
using
it.
the ship, right? To your point, he must be
Yeah.
using the ship. So that's interesting. Is it possible? Well, we'll find out. I don't know. By the way, at some point along the way here, I'm not sure if this just happened, but NerdCubes does finally build on E3 in the West, and which I think just happened. And did you say? I think Simone B hungrily builds a TP. Because that was the concern I have in these setups, and does appear that Nerdcube was kind of like, causing someone to be a bit of pain by attrition or what have you. And I've never seen a TP get built so fast.
Yeah. And that's funny because Nerdcube could have delay, right? He could have built I5 if he wanted.
True. Yeah.
And I'm not sure what he gets more out of E3. There might eventually, not really. I was wondering, like, is there a reason to want to beat NG there? But not really. Is it
I mean,
possible?
can
Could
be
it be
mutually
like,
beneficial. Some leech, I suppose.
yeah, I suppose. And
Oh man.
there's the Water One race now, which is interesting too. I think that both NG and Mermaids have it now. So Darklings and Giants are going to be in a race for that.
Yeah. Other
I don't
thing we
know.
should call out here is this is where the cult income for Earth kicks in, which is like, majorly stacked, which is a big thumb on the scale for NGs and Darklings.
Yeah.
Sometimes that can be missed.
Yeah. So Darklings here, they have a ton of resources. Probably there's more reason for them to take the bridge and the coins as the first action. They're going to build 2 towns. It's going to be interesting to see, like, do they try to close the Earth Cult with these 2 towns, like going 2 key and 1 key, for example, trying to engineer some point on the cult because they're not getting any by network. So maybe that's what they're going to try.
Yeah. Although wouldn't it have been nice for Darklings to, so they do first move bridge. And wouldn't it have been nice for so Nerdcube gets the coins again, and that is so good for Giants here.
Oh yeah.
Because they had their economy completely out of balance. I mean, I don't mean that as a criticism, just a reality. So like what a relief for Giants to be able to get the coins there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is where I'm wondering about his pass decision because he could also have passed on to 5 coins in a cult step. And
Oh yeah, that's a very very good point. Yeah.
wouldn't it have been nice to take 2 like 8-point towns and then close Earth with that? I don't know if you can do, but anyway, just kind of thinking, brainstorming
Yeah,
here.
I think you will not have the power for the bridge though if you did that. So probably you needed to pass for power bonus, but yeah, you will have to keep an eye on him. Like, what's
Yeah.
the plan here?
So I also find like town rounds, particularly like a round 4 or 5 town games, like players' game plans can actually branch in a ton of different directions because they could just focus on scoring, they could focus on cults, they could focus on like, coins and workers to actually try to build more. Like I find that moment to be very difficult to forecast, when I'm casting or playing against players. So we'll see how this game forks out from here, to your point about thinking about which towns they end up taking. I think Darklings, in a perfect world, get probably the 2 8-point towns. Maybe the 2 key. I don't know if anyone is dying for the 2 key here, but of course
Yeah,
it's not bad.
I think as Darklings I will prefer the 2 8-pointers. Probably that's enough to have like an okay enough position on the Earth call. I mean, the worst case scenario, you get beat on Earth, and it's not like it's not the end of the world, right?
Yeah.
It's losing 4 points, and you got 6 points out of going for the 8-pointer. Of course, it also affects other calls, but. It will take probably for Angie to beat you on the Earth Cult, him taking Earth 3, so that hurts him too. So that has to be factored.
Yeah. I'm trying to. The Edge's game is definitely strong, and I'm trying to figure out how to take into account the points gap between Giants and NGs in thinking about that. Now, because with grays already available to them, NGs can get down to 3 structures. So Giants, I think probably could threaten that, but maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong about that. So I'm assuming NGs will win network here. They're not, they will get maybe 10-ish points on cults. So that closes the gap a bit, and he's 2 towns coming in the town round here, whereas Nerdcube, I believe, will get the 1 town.
Yeah.
So should we call it a dead heat right now?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to call. Probably also engineers are going to make some points out of their bonus. They are on the pass shipping bonus. I'm sure they intend to exploit that. Not sure. Well, I doubt that Giants will go for, well, he just went for a temple, so he's not going for a sanctuary. So there's that to take into account too. I wouldn't be surprised that NG do a little more points, so 9 points out of this past time. Yeah, the gap is going to definitely close here. Probably NG will strengthen his position on the cult. I expect him to take the 8-pointer too. So yeah, a lot to. Um, I expect the situation at the end of this round will be much clearer here, and the gap will be a lot smaller too. So I see people in the chat saying that Darklings could take A7 here.
Interesting. I don't think that hurts Nerdcube that much.
Yeah, I suppose if you want to make sense of the passing shipping, is there like a world in which Darklings want to take E8 and H5 maybe, or I don't know. Or E8 and F5.
That would be wild.
So yeah, no, it's not gonna happen. Cube secures that hex. And we see the 8-pointers taken by Darklings. I believe now NG will do a town too. We haven't talked a long time about mermaids. It's crazy how much like losing the B5 hex hurt them.
Yeah.
I wonder, like, is he even getting 1 town this round? Doesn't look like it.
Oh wow, yeah. And this is also part of the problem of like a neighbor being delayed so long in the west and lack of, not being able to build TPs over there. Wow. Could it be no towns in the west? Oh man. That is brutal.
Yeah.
For mermaids. They'll ride Air 1 a bit. They'll score a bit with their dwellings. It's possible they could, they definitely could finish with better network than, in fact, maybe it's even likely that they finish with better network than Giants. I think Giants will catch them on network. I could be wrong about that. I don't think they will get NG's network by the end of this game, but maybe I'm wrong because it's interesting. I mean, Deep Finesse does seem to be saving some of these grays for next round, for round 6 to score just a ton with them. But I'm still thinking that he'll end up winning network here.
Yeah, I agree with you. I believe that NG is by far in the best position for network here. And you go for the 2 key. That's interesting.
Well, can't imagine Afaz too. So he just closes Earth with Priest Occult. No fuss.
Mhm.
And there was some I believe we were challenged to see if we could pronounce his name correctly.
Oh boy.
I think so. So I did some intel to his family members. He's part Japanese, part Brazilian. So
Okay.
I think right. So I believe we have to pronounce the first part of his name with the in Portuguese and the second part with in Japanese. So
That
it's
sounds
like
like a challenge.
Hafao Furyu, I believe is Hafao Furyu, I believe is that's my attempt to do Portuguese on the first half and Japanese on the second half.
Well, that was pretty good. I'm not gonna
Oh,
try.
we'll see.
I,
Oh.
I have no idea how to pronounce either. So
Right. Well, my Japanese wife just told me that I completely butchered the Japanese part.
oh
So
no.
thanks, Jekyll.
So um, I'll settle for calling him Rafa. Uh, we see like NG's going for 3, so NG kind of balancing, I guess. I suppose that once the Darklings sent that piece to Earth, they were less interested, maybe, for going for another cult town. It's a little odd to me that you will go for the 2 key and not follow up with the 8-pointer.
Yeah, I agree. The eight pointer looks quite good here. Um,
And I think that the priest was fine, but if you go for the priest, why not the 8-pointer in the priest?
yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. Is now Giants take the 8-pointer?
They could, yeah. It's possible.
From I think it would be reasonable because air cult is tricky now because the 4 priest slots are taken. So someone's gonna need to kind of get to manufacture air cult steps if they want to win on that. And the second and third is quite tight on fire and water.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of points left on the cult pack for sure.
Mm-hmm. He's giving this a thought. I mean, it's possible he's thinking I think there's a lot of reasonable options here for him, including probably Priest Town, maybe even Coin Town's not insane. He has Earth 1 and Water 1 going into a dwelling scoring round. Yeah, he does take the 1 step on each.
I was even wondering about Power Town for the double dig if he wants to make a play for network. But yeah.
Oh, you know what? That's something to keep our eye on. Actually, is that he could stomp G1.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. To
Yeah.
go for the double spade on G1 and kind of give NG's his change for the move that the hard dig that hit it on D6.
Oh, see, you say you don't like giant Zoras, but it's just because you have this. You're like the dark side is within you that you try to resist, and you just have to embrace it.
I actually find, for the record, I find Giants super fun to play. And I've said that several times. I don't like them in the game. I don't like how they affect the dynamic of the game. I don't like playing against them.
So you like being Giants, not playing against them. I agree. Except I think for me, my biggest I actually really like Giants because I think you have to think about the board completely differently when you're Giants, which makes it a different kind of puzzle, which is fun. And I don't mind playing against Giants as long as it's good players playing them, so I can at least somewhat predict their moves. But playing against Giants in an imbalanced arena table is that's just my worst nightmare.
Yeah, that's a good point too. It's on this table, and we've kind of seen it. It makes we can expect that whoever ended up playing Giants, it will be a sensible game.
Right, right. which is so fun, right? Because to me, I love the going down the chain of, right. So even Deep Finesse, right? Thinking about the domino effects of hard digging D6, you know, as trusts the competence of his opponents to do what's in their best interest, have conditional on him putting them in that position, right? And like that's what makes Terra Mystica interesting to me, is that kind of like chess-like dynamic. And so like when you get tables like this is partly why I like, anyway, I think this format is just super exciting, seeing these Premier League games. Um, and like, yeah, I think that those are the aspects of Giants that I quite really, really enjoy. And like just the way you look at the map with glasses that see only red and not red, or perhaps red, neutral hexes, and then like enemy hexes or something like that, it's just a cool different lens with which to look at the game.
Yeah, it's true. Again, yeah, it's true that it's changed a lot, whether you're playing with good players or not. That's that much I would grant for sure.
Yeah.
I wonder. So what's in the card for the Darklings were able to do some points here, and they still have some to come if they want. Maybe they will prefer to kind of delay. Um, they they still don't have Water One, but we can expect them to do uh, a lot of dwellings. So they choose to do one now. They don't want to wait for next round.
So I'm interested because of course they're all counting out moves here. So and he could have split up those digs. He could have not built, right? Like so I believe Rafa just counted out moves to say he wants to pass probably onto ship points, and he thinks NGs are passing next move.
Yeah, it's either that or the big building, maybe.
And I suppose, worst case, he just doesn't a TP, I suppose, with one more move if Deep Finesse does something with the priest, for example. So I think he's counted this out a bit and got it at a position that he likes. Yeah, this is where like I think it's fun to think a little bit about like what different players are good at. And like we were talking a little bit that we think you were reflecting on, and both of us have played against Deep Finesse in the Premier League actually. And like I agree, what you said resonates with me, is that he seems to be very good at seeing the consequences of a given action that sends the game down a line that is ultimately favorable to him. And another player who I think is very stylistic in a different way is like Barnawal. If you've seen any of his games, I think he's like amazingly good at, even at the beginning of a round, counting out the actions he thinks people will take. And he'll often pass just one move before I think he's going to, because he has counted out all our moves. And then he gets onto the scroll that I desperately need, et cetera, et cetera. And then he gets, coins or something like that. And I think he's just like incredibly good at, even at the beginning of a round, anticipating how many actions each player is going to take.
Yeah, yeah, that's totally true for both player. I think it's fun to see them fight with each other. I think that to me the one of the fun of this format is that you get like really not just quality players, but you get all of them playing together. And to me, the fact that Deep Finesse was able to win with such domination the first two seasons, we didn't come back on that, but I mean, that tells you how strong he is, but also how important the thing he is good at becomes in like high stakes game. I think that this ability to kind of shape the game by some determining move. I mean, this hard dig, no, not many player, I believe, will have done. I'm not sure if another player will have done it. On hard dig on D6.
Well, I'm tempted to harness my Team USA mentality, and it's still small samples and etc. My confidence is not shaken, but it's been damn impressive.
Yeah.
That said, holy cow! Nerdcube's game is pretty monstrous here. Um, going at 100 points before round 6 is always like pretty remarkable, and he still has some points on the pass to come. So this is a monster Nerdcube game that I'm very much enjoying. And Rafael Furyu is, he almost broke 100 from
Yeah.
some, challenging circumstances. I think ultimately this is where it catches up to him and he's not dominating cults, but still a really, really cool performance from him. And I think he's made the most of a very difficult situation.
To come back to your point, though, we see that he passed first. Maybe that's what he wanted, but I think we were expecting him more to play for a pass style. So
Yeah.
would it have been better not to dig that like strongly the B6X as he did? Maybe like just turn it to brown first, or
Yeah, I'm a little confused. Hey, I've got Jekyll here with me.
oh, hello, Jekyll.
The kid's in bed.
No. Good casting so far.
Oh, thank you. Is that to me or Zoras?
Both. Very entertaining.
Oh, good. All right. I'm not following chat, so I'm just assuming they're calling me an idiot and telling me that I'm completely wrong about everything. How are you feeling about your competition for next week?
Nauseous.
Yeah. I will say
Yeah.
Sorry, what were you saying, Zoras?
I was wondering which player she will keep an eye on more than others.
No, despite having watched Nerdcube a lot, like him play a lot, I've actually never played Nerdcube. I've played everybody else. Rafael Furiu, yeah. Obviously, Simon Biet played a lot. So yeah, I think Nerdcube is most like unknown.
Yeah. So you're looking forward to play your first game with him?
You could say that.
Looking forward. Yeah, with a sense of nausea. I will say, I don't know, like it's different playing. It's intense playing players so good with an audience. I certainly was stressful for me. I did not sleep well the night before my Premier League games.
Yeah, it is. I had like similar experience in the Premier League. Like I felt that the stakes were high, right? There's like, you know that you can't go wrong. Mistakes won't be forgiven. So.
That's right. I think that's the stress, is that like you there's no margin for error.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, exactly. Mistakes won't be forgiven, right? And you can just see like there's sometimes these moments in an auction where you miss something, or et cetera, et cetera. Did we miss anything important? One thing I think that I just wanted to call out is it was interesting to see a couple players secure key hexes before the dwelling round. Did you see Giants built on 812 in the Northeast? And G1 NG's build was, I think, I'm assuming Giants were worried Darklings would hit 812, and NGs were worried Giants would hit G1.
Yeah,
but that's always a tricky trade-off.
I think also how the bonus tiles played out was very interesting. The Indian mermaids got what he wanted, the pass shipping scroll, and all the others I'm not too sure. So we've discussed already Darklings. The spade for Giants is kind of an odd sight. I suppose he can hard dig, it's dwelling around, but it's probably not. I don't think it will be his first choice. No one got around to get the dwelling bonus scroll on the dwelling round 6. So I think it was Simon aware on that. So good job of denying that to other players. And the big building for NG here I'm not sure it's gonna pay actually. I don't know. Like maybe we'll build one. It will be interesting to follow up.
Yeah. So and he's got so many grays. He's also got 2 digs off the cult that he planted in the bottom right corner. Um, so maybe there's some alternate reality where Deep Finesse could have actually done a third town in the southeast if he didn't dig H8 or
But there's no neighbor.
yeah, it's true. No neighbor. That wouldn't have worked. And you've got to take H. Yeah. I mean, I think this is better. I mean, these hexes are all just super valuable from the perspective of digging or building lots of dwellings. I mean, he must be building one of his big buildings this round, is he? Because well,
Yeah,
I can.
he is kind of short of things to build, so he'll have
Yeah.
to.
What that's wow. That's one of them good problems.
Yeah.
When you build so much, you're out of buildings to build. Um,
So
but
yeah, I think that Air 1, Air 3, probably a Sanctuary, I expect.
yeah.
It's the Stronghold has some value too. Air, like going on the Air 1 or Air 3 has the advantage of contesting the Air Cult to Giants, who has definitely a very strong game. So that's something I like about it. But depending, it's kind of hard for me to assess how much. Oh, he doesn't have that much. I don't expect him to build more bridges. So yeah, I think so. We'll see the Sanctuary.
So we see Rafa take 2 worker power action. We see Nerdcube get the coins. I mean, how many times have Giants gotten coins this game? At least 3, which is just what the doctor ordered.
Yeah, that's very strong.
Yeah. It's interesting because he doesn't have a lot of. You take enough? All right. Kids to bed. All right. See ya. Yes, lost my train of thought. Sorry. Oh yeah, he doesn't actually have many hexes now for the dwelling round, which I guess is the thinking with the dig scroll. It's yeah, it's interesting when this is where the landscape would be nice if he could kind of maybe even increase digs once and then get a couple more structures down this round. Nerdcube also, I suppose, has some wealthy person problems of not having many structures left to build. From The Wire, there's some TV show where there's a kingpin who says it's one of them good problems.
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry. I think this is a really remarkable Giants game. I think.
Yeah, especially like he was not able to do something amazing like linking D4 and G2. He got hard dig D6, and still, he's looking at a game where he's probably finishing at 15 networks at the least, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, 15 network. So that's a lot.
Yeah, with no landscape.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild. I'm not gonna do math, but yeah, it's pretty interesting. So
I don't.
Darklings have successfully won Earth and Fire. It looks like.
Yeah, so Darklings went with Fire Tree. A lot of resources in the cults, right? We see that it's not Nerdcube playing Darklings. Tree Priest on the cult, tree, Fire Tree, a cult town. There was a lot of resources in the cult. And it's still will be an interesting score for Darklings. I don't think he is in position to win this one, but he still has like a lot of points coming.
No, it's true. It's true. Yeah, definitely an interesting game.
Yeah, it's kind of got to this point. We see that mermaids in the end, does it seem like he never recovered from the hard dig on D6 somehow? It seems like. Uh,
Didn't think you'd be saying that about mermaids this game.
yeah, that's amazing when you think about it.
Yeah.
I kind of like Simon's game plan from the beginning. You played aggressively with the high shipping game in mind, but losing this down was just really hurtful for him. And again, playing against smart players, we saw that um, he was denied neighbor for a very long time. So I think it was the recipe for a difficult first game.
Yeah.
After that, it's hard to say, right? I think Rafa has to be third. Do you agree?
I assume so. But we know what assuming does.
Yeah.
I agree. Which also makes me think that if it is, we're probably wrong, but if it is head to head now between NGs and Giants, that the air called battle is actually incredibly important because rather than it being 4 points, it's maybe an 8 point swing.
Yeah. So Angie still hasn't built a big building that I expect he's gonna build. Um, he doesn't have that much resources for it. I mean, it's. Uh, I
Mm-hmm.
don't think, for example, we can build a big building and build another dwelling thanks to it.
Mm-hmm.
So what I think it is for NG is um, sanctuary trading post dwelling. That's probably what's
Yeah.
left.
Yeah. Sanctuary trading post dwelling. Be interesting if that sanctuary is an air 3
Could
or
be.
not.
I mean, it could be Air 3. Air 1 might be, again, just correct.
Well,
Then there's.
that to me is an interesting calculation, right? Because because of the head-to-head nature of this. And if you air one, let's see. I'm not sure if will we have an air. We have Giants taking another an air one. I'm not sure. Um,
The way I see it, I don't know. I mean, if NG can go to 16 structures, it means that Giants may have to hard dig if he wants
yeah.
to catch NG on network, which
Mhm.
makes a lot of sense, right? So
Yeah.
what I believe that means is that he will get either one piece, he could advance ship with, he will have two priests, so he can send two to some cult, or maybe advance ship and
Mhm.
then and send one to one cult, something like that.
Yeah. So you're saying there's going to be 4 workers and 2 coins from Giants going into digging. He has the dig scroll, so that's 3 workers, and then to pay for the dwelling.
Yeah.
And so there's limited income, but he can just feed those 2 priests somewhere. Yeah, that's fair. And so even if NG's take air 3, that ends up as a draw on air called potentially.
Yeah, that's where it gets complicated because yeah, it ends up with the draw. But if you prevent Giants advancing shipping, you just took 4 points away from him. Still, you know.
That's true. Oh my
Oh,
gosh, yeah, that's the end game.
yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's so tough to calculate. That's
So
the
yeah,
that yeah, those are you and I were talking before the game about playing how async is actually just a really good training tool for that type of minutia in a
oh yeah,
game where real time it's like almost it's just at least for me it's almost impossible to really go through all those trees. Whereas in async you can actually think through a lot of those trade-offs.
yeah. To me, that's the difference. In acing, that's a situation I love. You know, I'm gonna like have fun counting this. In real time, it's a nightmare. I hate it, and I'm just like I'm having no fun right now.
Oh my god, I know. Yeah. Oh man, especially in a high stakes game like this. I have to say, like, I really enjoyed playing the Premier League, but I'm a little bit glad I'm not playing in this. Like, it's just like it's so much pressure.
Yeah, it's pressure, and I mean, you have to do everything, right? That's what we were saying before. You can't get away with anything. So
Yeah.
you have to do the
Yeah.
complex calculation. You have to count how many moves your opponent have
Right.
before passing. Yeah, it's it's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah. And I think it's also one of those things where, as much as you want to say it's, it's still for fun, I think at this level, you can tell yourself that, but if you make, and I know this from experience, if you make a critical error, particularly late game, you really kick yourself
Yeah.
hard for a while. So like, even though I tell myself, I know it's just for fun, in the scheme of things, it ultimately doesn't matter, but we play to win because it's kind of fun and interesting. And then when you fail in that, it does sting quite a bit.
Yeah, exactly. I think we see that Deepkin is delaying here. I believe he wants to see what Nerdcube is doing with these priests before committing to the Sanctuary. That's probably why he's delaying as much as is possible, although um, I'm pretty sure he's gonna build eventually the Sanctuary. Um,
One thing
Other
that
than
Jekyll was a teammate of Deep Finesse on Team Asia, and one thing she told me is that he like loves delaying
yeah,
decisions like that, to the point where it was like they were mermaids and they had like so many actions during. There wasn't like some town round later. It was just like a bunch of actions where they could have formed a town and chose not to. Um, and they were just like, "Why are we towning yet?" They like, "We want," and it's like, "No, let's wait and see which. Let's wait and let's not rush to a decision about which town we want to take." So it's kind of interesting to see that as a stylistic thing as well, and putting relatively high priority on delaying those types of decisions so you have as much information as possible.
yeah, that's super interesting, especially in the case of the Finesse, who hasn't done much streaming. Like, it's hard to see. Like, he's been casting maybe several times, but we don't have like as much input on how he's thinking. I really enjoy this kind of little insight in how he's seeing the game.
Yeah, yeah, totally. So we are in the final push here.
Yeah.
And as you said, I mean, Raphael's definitely putting up some numbers here. Like that's no joke. I mean, I really wish he was on a pass scroll. Um, but no, it's pretty solid. Is And so Simone B's forming a town now in the southwest. So he gets his two west towns eventually. It's too bad because yeah. I mean, in full disclosure, like I love playing mermaids. I just love the starting with one ship. I find it really fun, and I'm terrible with them. I always lose as mermaids. I was jokingly telling some players, maybe Ghostly or someone the other day. It was Ghostly, Rafa, and Simone B. If you want to beat me, just put mermaids in because I will pay way too much for them, and then I will also lose. But it's an interesting faction because they seem straightforward, but I have found like these weird mid-game moments where the wheels can kind of fall off. And I agree with you. I kind of liked where Simone B was going with them. And then there was just some key moments mid-game where the wheels seemed to fall off a bit. And I say that partly because like one of the I try to reflect towards the end of the game and try to figure out like what was this foreseeable? Was it an auction problem? Or did this game go down a weird line that just really broke badly for mermaids, right? Like, in trying to
Yeah.
decipher the distinction.
Very good question. Well, I mean, we were a little surprised to see, and I think that your description of playing mermaids matched some of my experience. And at the beginning, I said that mermaids were probably safer than engineers, who look like high risk, high reward. So much for that. It ended up being like super high risk playing mermaids, and. And I think that part of it is that it went a weird line. I don't think Simon was, and I wasn't thinking either that he will lose b5 and any reason that he had any reason to lose b5. But yeah, it changed. But and then again, there's like this factor of having the experience of playing mermaids at a certain level, and then playing it at a table where everyone is super aware of what's going on. So the West, not having neighbors in the West, is probably also one thing that hurt Mermaid.
Yeah, I do think that's a source of fragility for mermaids, right? Like that is a counterpoint to your kind of saying that they're safe. I do think that that is a risk factor. That said, like I do think some of the reasons we liked Simone B's game have borne out, and like this is a no landscapes game, and we're getting 3 factions down to 2 structures, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's interesting to see. Again, I think that we saw a good giant player. We've talked about it, but the fact that he lost both G2 and D6 and still has such a high network game to me is very remarkable.
Yeah, he's done some unusual things here as well, including double dig power action and a kind of hard dig with the dig scroll here. And that's kind of what it takes to win or tie for network as giants, right? It's like the stronghold action is usually just not quite enough to win network, that you need to squeeze out a little extra here and there, which is often what the the landscape helps you do. Man, I mean, but I think Nerdcube has this, right?
Yeah,
Unless I'm tripping, it's possible I'm tripping.
We just saw that Nerdcube in the end decided to advance shipping. He sent his priest to water. He spent a lot of time calculating everything. And that allowed, and we set up Deep Finesse when he saw that he answered straight away with Air 1. He was waiting for that. So it's a very good trade-off for NG in the end. He gets the Air 1 for 4 points and he gets the win on Air Call. I mean, NG definitely.
They're passing for 8. They're break even on. They do make up. Oh, maybe I'm wrong. Make up a decent chunk on the cults. They pass for 8. They break even on network. Well, I'll let it happen.
Yeah, it's
I find it harder
close.
to do when I'm casting actually than when I'm viewing.
Yeah, exactly. But I think Nerdcube has it. That's my call right now. And
yeah,
I see.
All right.
I don't know if you noticed, but Simon in the end he has 15 network and he passed at 108.
Wow.
I didn't see that coming.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. It's still a sneaky good game from Mermaids with a lot of I mean, that also tells me the upside on his game if it had gone a little bit differently, like getting towns in the town round, for example.
Yeah. I mean, super impressed. I mean, I thought you will do a lot.
It was a really good game. Yeah, I'm impressed too. So Nerdcube for the win.
Yeah.
What an exciting game. I mean, all 4 players, super interesting. It ends up being really close. Honestly, Simone B finishing only is this 11 back of the winner is pretty wild.
Yeah, very
what
impressive.
A great game. Yeah, that was such a good game.
Super interesting. I'd love to have. I don't know if we'll be able to get Nerdcube for the interview. It will be interesting to have his point of view on what happened. Let me see if we can get him.
Nerdcube just got his Master Assassin accomplishment.
Yeah, that's one thing that is exciting in this season. I mean, before we all knew that these players are super strong, but they didn't always had like the strongest rating showing. This season, they are stacked. They are like Deep Finesse
Yeah.
at 702, Nerdcube very close.
Yeah, Nerdcube's now at 709, and Deep Finesse is now at Deep Finesse. I bet this almost never happens to him. That what he's a master. He does not win and still gains elo. That's how strong. That's how strong these tables are.
Yeah.
But
So we'll see. I don't know. We didn't. I. We'll see if we can get Nerdcube. Will be fun. It's always interesting to see. Okay, he's gonna be with us. Great. All right. Just one moment. I'll try to see. Right now. Oh, just a minute. I haven't done that right. I'll just call back Nerdcube in the proper way. Sorry. Oh, I think that I. Wait a second. All right, then you're back with us, and
hey,
I'll try. I forgot how to Discord now. Just a minute.
do we have the star of the show?
He's coming.
I did see that so I'm cheering for Nerdcube.
Uh, Hello, Eric. Are you with us?
Yeah, how's it going?
Uh, Good. Is Mr. Fickles still with us?
I am, if you can hear me. How's it going, Eric? Congratulations. That was awesome.
Good,
All right,
thanks.
good.
Yeah, glad
Yeah,
I got to do it with Giants.
Incredible game. I mean, that was like such a high level game. Super fun to cast. Walk us through your initial thoughts after winning this one.
It was messy. I screwed up a bit at the end, so I was upset about that as I was calculating points. You know, I ended up advancing shipping, so I could have shipped over into that southwest corner and avoided doing a worker dig for my last red, and then saved some workers and advanced by digging instead. So like I don't know, I feel like I made some mistakes at the end, but I don't know. Overall, I thought I got a good deal out of the auction. Like I was pretty happy. Like I thought. I don't know. I thought the track, being like the Mimi Temple Giants track, would kind of scare people away from Giants. But I think Giants are just totally fine in a game like with those pass tiles and getting lots of leech at the beginning. So yeah, I think I like had some leeway to screw up a little bit because of where I started. But yeah, deep finesse, hard digging, like it was a mess. It was a mess all around.
Yeah, that was I think a really, really interesting moment in the game on that hard dig on D6. What was when that happened? What was your initial reaction? And then because it's interesting, like one of the things I think we identified relatively quickly was like that was really painful for mermaids actually because of the repercussion, the fact that you will then kill mermaids town in the north. What was your thinking through that? Were you worried at all? And likewise, I'd love to hear your reflections on your early dig decisions on the kind of center town that turned into a 4-hex town.
Yeah, I think I botched that all too. I had so right. This is like the dilemma of giants, right? I built. So first off, I was debating building a temple.
Yeah, you think about that.
I thought about it, but then I just thought, with like, I think I had like an 11-point head start or something. I was like, look, if I just play a normal Giants game, I think I can win this. Like, I don't think I need to do anything weird. So I built the stronghold. I also partially built the stronghold because Raphael didn't dig E6 in the first round. Like my plan as Darklings was, to just open Temple 3 dwellings with Fire 1 and then Sanctuary round 2. And so I would have built a dwelling on E6, right? It's a great spot. You get a bit of extra leech from engineers and giants. You secure your sanctuary town there. But once Raphael, like, I waited for a really long time. Like I think I took coins per action, a priest per action. I sent my priest to air. Like I was delaying as long as I could to make sure that Raphael wasn't going to dig E6 on me or do anything weird. When he took workers, it looked like he was doing double temple. But yeah, I waited as long as I could, and then I realized that E6 was going to be pretty important. It was going to let me threaten some of Deep Finesse's hexes down in the if I busted through, I could threaten some of the gray and the red hexes down in the southwest. It was going to get me a town with no bridge. It was going to help me get an earlier town, right? Like an early Giants town for shipping town is always super good. So that's why I dug E6. Like that's why I went for the stronghold and dug E6. And then I was like waffling back and forth. At one point, I really expected. I took a coins action in round 2, I think it was. Fully
I think
expecting
you took
mermaids.
a lot of coins actually in this game.
Yeah, that helped. Yeah. So like I had the power for a priest or a coins action, but not both. But I took the coins action first, seeing that Deep Finesse wanted it. Was fully expecting mermaids to dig C3. I knew they were going to take a double spade, so I fully expected them to dig C3 and give me the power to also take the priest, so that I could advance shipping and secure some more red hexes. When that didn't happen, suddenly I was in this dilemma of like, do I take C3? Like, do I take, what is that, F3? I ended up prioritizing F3 because I wanted to be able to threaten engineers' hexes. Like, I wanted to be able to threaten those grays. But that, yeah, it was a huge dilemma of what to target with pretty much all of my Giants actions. Like every single one was like a really crazy decision of like, yeah, what's important to lock up here, because Darklings can dig anything at any point. Mermaids had a bunch of workers and a great economy. Deep Finesse, I mean, hell, I thought that red was safe from Deep Finesse because he's engineers, but apparently a hard dig in round 3 is not beyond him. So,
I find that thinking over the C3 hex so interesting because it's obviously like a key hex for both giants and mermaids, and you expect it to be like prioritized, but it seems like it ended up being just as important for the leech that one get out of it, and like it was like taking it isn't good territory speaking, but giving the leech is bad. So there was like this interesting dynamic.
Yeah, I really wanted him to take it, and it was but at the same time, it also ended up being fine that he didn't, because then I got a town without a bridge. But maybe if I had bridged, I would have taken away like the G1 hex from engineers. So like, I don't know. I don't know if it ended up being good or bad for each of us, but well, it certainly ended up being bad for mermaids that they weren't able to get a town there. That was So I thought Deep Finesse's move was super aggressive, right? I don't want to call it bad, but I did not think he could afford that. And so then once he did that, I was like, okay, I feel like he's in a worse position than I expected. He had a ton of resources. He was getting a bunch of leech. He got Earth 1. So I was like very worried about his game, and then he did that, and suddenly I was like, okay, I'm no longer as worried about Deep Finesse, because that was a weird move. And so that's when I decided to kind of kill mermaids a little bit. I was fairly worried about mermaids at one point. Like with Fire 1, they got on the shipping tile a couple times. Like they had room to expand. I knew they were going to get neighbors eventually.
Yeah.
And you can see if they had gotten that town, that's maybe the gap between me and them. So
yeah, it's possible.
Yeah, our interpretation was that it was an invitation to you to kill Mermaid's town there.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's what it was. It's like Darklings was bid down a lot and wasn't connecting, so maybe Deep Finesse is thinking they're out of it, and maybe it's like, okay, I can, because I love moves like that, right? If you can kill an opponent and cause them to kill a different opponent, and you assume the other opponent's already out of it or something, right? That's an awesome series of moves.
Yeah,
those are the kinds of ways of thinking that get you to master.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of which, how good was it to have this 3 points victory over Deep Finesse? I mean, we've talked about that in the preceding seasons. Deep Finesse has an amazing score, but when you look at the difference, often it was like such a small margin between you and him. So how good was to get this one?
Oh, it feels great, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it was last season. I had 3 losses to him by a combination of 4 points or something like that. It was something very tight like that. And when I was making these little mistakes at the end, I was like, oh no, it's gonna happen again. On my last action of just cult dumping water, I was sitting there just running through all the permutations. Okay, can he use these priests to build a stronghold and then one more bridge? What will that or is he going to sanctuary? So I was trying to see if I needed to force him to use his priests, and I'm doing all the math. I'm like, I think I have this, but man, if I don't, I'm gonna be beating myself up for,
Yeah, so huge congrats, and you've done Team USA proud. I don't know if you saw the Team USA. I don't know who's in there, but they were watching they're at the table spectating.
Oh, nice. USA.
But yeah. I also just wanted to shout out. I thought it was interesting. Your use of digging as giants beyond your stronghold action, right? And you did double dig in the dig round, I believe round 4, and then you pass on to dig scroll and combined it with a 3 worker dig in round 6. And that, I think I imagine those are non-trivial conclusions to come to and end up being key for tying these people on network.
Yeah, to have so many red hexes killed, well, two red hexes, I guess, that like giants often get killed. And I didn't even make it down into to that I1, but still get 15 network. That was pretty cool. But yeah, I know I've cautioned to get like in the past, like when I've talked about giants, I say like never double dig as giants, but I think that was about like one of the times where it was right. Like securing a hex, like it was a spade round, so I got 4 points, and then the next round was a town round, and I needed like one more hex to form a town cleanly. So that was about as good as a double spade can get for giants, I feel like.
Yeah, and it's sort of enabled by like I think you ended up getting the coin action in four of the 6 rounds. So like you can actually afford to use your power to double dig when you're getting that many coins in other ways.
Yeah, coins are good.
Yeah, I said it during the game, and I'll say it again. I think that was a very, very impressive giant game to be able to do 15 networks and tie NG and Mermaid. So it was super significant after having 2 red hacks stolen. I think that's remarkable. So yeah, big congratulations to you. It was a super fun game to watch.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, it was a very fun game to play. This is a sweet line of players this season.
Yeah, no, it's awesome, and all 4 players, I mean, amazing games, and ends up being 11 points first to last, which is tight. So, so big thanks to all the players for putting on such an amazing show, and NerdCube, we're excited to see you in action next week again.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I'm off next week. It might be casting or something, but either way, I'll see everyone around.
I'll see you in action casting then.
We'll follow that very closely. So yeah, keep up on the Discord to see for the next match. I'm not sure if it's announced yet on which stream it's gonna be. I know that they want to move it this season, so if it's already official, you can put it in the chat. Otherwise, just follow the Discord to have the information. Dan, thank you so much for casting this game with me. It was a lot of fun.
My pleasure. Always fun hanging out with you, and what a game. I mean, this is what the Terra Mystica Tuesday League's all about, is like these kinds of games, and what a treat this is. And huge thanks to you and Tioan for kicking this off. And big shout out to EJ, Super Jarny, and Ghostly for heading up the league this year. So really appreciate all the effort that's gone into it. So take care, everybody, and thanks a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.